What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto finds Uzushiogakure ruins? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Naruto was cold. He blinked his eyes open and shook the blurriness from his aching head. How long he had been out he was unsure. The memories of his most recent beating flooded into the forefront of his mind and the tears soon followed. It had been his birthday today, and while that might be a cause of celebration for most normal 6-year-olds, Naruto was not normal. His birthdays caused him nothing but pain. While he was frequently beaten over the course of the average month, his birthday was the one day he knew he was going to be hurt, and hurt severely. Hokage Gigi did everything he could to protect young Naruto, short of having him confined daily, to protect him, but his efforts were never enough, and his workload and responsibilities as the Hokage took up most of his time. Today though, it had been the worst he has ever suffered. Yes, tonight Naruto had been beaten, raped, and urinated on, before he was cast into a river unconscious. Meanwhile in Konoha, to say the Sandaime was furious would be the understatement of the century. He could not find Naruto anywhere, and he just got word from one of his loyal Anbu, who he had scouring the village for his surrogate grandson, that he overheard some men talking about what they had done to the demon brat tonight. The men, a few of them shinobi, were rounded up and sent to Ibiki Morino, the head of the torture and interrogation unit. It wasn't that much later the Hokage received a report from Ibiki of last known whereabouts of Naruto from the prisoners. Hiruzen accompanied a large team of his best trackers and Anbu Black Ops, one of which had gravity-defying gray hair, to search the forest and the river nearby, but they found no sign of Naruto. The team stayed out all night, and would continue to search for the next few days, but they would never find him. The men responsible were publicly executed after they pronounced Naruto dead 2 weeks after the search began. Before the men were executed however, the Hokage along with Jiraiya revealed the truth about Naruto to the stunned crowd. Jiraiya took the stage and while in tears and filled with rage filled the village in on the little secret that Naruto was in fact his godson. The demon brat, as he had been called, was the son of their greatest Hokage. His true name was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. They revealed the reason they kept it a secret was to protect him from his father's enemies, namely the shinobi of Iwa. For many ninja this was cause for great sadness and shame. For years many throughout the village had shunned, spited, and hurt the child in some fashion or another, whether it was through words or physical violence. But no one was more destroyed about learning of Naruto's heritage than Kakashi Hatake. Jiraiya made the announcement that he, like his former teammate, would never step foot in this accursed village ever again and left. And so began the depression of Konoha. Back with Naruto. It had been 2 weeks since Naruto had awoken upon the shores of the once great Uzushiogakure. To say the young boy was scared and confused would be an understatement. He had food that he had foraged, and water that he had found. But for the past few days after he had blocked out the trauma, and recovered from the pain he had been exploring the ruins of this once great village. Right now he was exploring what reminded him a little of the Hokage Tower. As he searched through the various rooms and offices he noticed that all of the bookcases and desks were bare. He spent hours searching all of the building until he finally came upon the Azukage's office. Behind the desk lay a broken kunai. Naruto picked it up and ran his finger along the edge. He pulled his hand away sharply after he nicked himself. A few drops of blood fell on the floor and something amazing happened. Wow, what's going on? Naruto said as a ceiling array glowed into existence and the desk slid forward across the floor to reveal a hidden staircase. Slowly and cautiously Naruto descended the stairs and the narrow hallway that followed. He came to a stone door with a spiral design exactly like the one on his once white t-shirt. He touched the door and some of the blood still leaking from his fingertip activated another ceiling array. The great stone door slid open and Naruto entered. He came to a square-shaped room with 3 doors, one on the north wall, one on the west wall, and one on the east. He proceeded north and this room would change his life forever. As he crossed the threshold through the door marked, "Training," he saw a vast seal along the floor. He thought back to the other seals and decided he should touch this with his fingertip as well. The moment he did, the door closed, the seal lit up and 3 figures appeared in the center of the room. Hello. Naruto said to the 3 figures that had just materialized before him. Who are you? he asked, unsure what was going on. The figure in the middle stepped forward, his long red hair swaying behind him. He was a tall man with light green eyes and two long bangs framing the sides of his face. He wore a black robe over what appeared to be shinobi armor. "My name is Sephiroth Uzumaki, young one," the man stated. His voice had a noble air to it. Naruto immediately knew this was a man of some importance. His mind though went over the mont's name. "Why, you're an Uzumaki too?" Naruto asked, wide-eyed. The mont's eyes shimmered and the corner of his lip seemed to curve upwards, if only a little. "Yes, we are in Uzushiogakure after all. Well, at least what used to be Uzu. I am the Shodai Azukage, or at least I was in life." Naruto's eyes bulged out and he trembled a little bit. "Are you a ghost?" he shouted, pointing his finger accusingly at the man. Silence followed for a few moments before it was broken by uproarious laughter from the three men. "Ahahahaha, no baka," the leftmost figure said as he stepped forward. He was a tall, thin, but muscular man with spiky red hair and amber eyes. "We sealed our chakra into this chamber, and into these seals. You see, brat, every time a new Azukage takes the throne, he wears a seal that chiffons his chakra into this room. In the event the Azukage should die, his remaining chakra, which is infused with a piece of his soul, remains here, to train and guide the next Azukage. I am the Saitame Azukage, Ichigo Uzumaki." Again Naruto's eyes bulged and his jaw hit the floor. Ichigo smiled and pointed towards the other man, who had yet to step forward. Without hesitation the third man stepped forward and introduced himself. He too had spiky red hair, but with sharp blue eyes and pointed canines. "And I am his father, Rin Uzumaki. Nidame Azukage. What is your name, Gaki?" Naruto pointed at himself. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki." The three men sent glances toward each other. "Come here, Naruto," Sephiroth said. Hesitantly the boy obliged. The two other cages surrounded him, and together with the Shodai, they laid their hands upon his head. Together the three cages entered into the boy's mindscape. Inside Naruto's mindscape, "Whoa, this place is a dump," Rin said with a frown marring his face. "Something is strange about this boy, that is certain," remarked Sephiroth. For some reason Ichigo chose to remain silent, a contemplating look upon his face as he followed his predecessors. They soon came upon a vast metal gate, with a piece of paper in the middle with the kanji for seal written on it. "Well, that explains it," Rin said. "He's a Jinchuriki," Sephiroth noted aloud. "So this is the mighty Kyuubi," Sephiroth said with a small smirk gracing his face. This however infuriated the already angry and confused Biju. "You dare mock me, puny human? Come closer and I will feast upon your marrow." "Haha. Oh, looks like you pissed him off, Tusan," Rin noted with amusement. "Yes, quite, but somehow I doubt that is very hard to do," Sephiroth responded. In turn the great fox just intensified his glare. "Who are you, and why are you here?" At this Ichigo stepped forward. "We are the former Azukages." The Kyuubi looked intrigued and a little shocked. "We have come to find out who this young Naruto Uzumaki is. He doesn't exactly look like one you know." The fox just laughed and closed his eyes. "No, he does not. I assure you, however, he is. So far I respect him the most compared to my previous Uzumaki jailers. Though you have wasted your time. I don't really care who you are, and I'm not going to tell you anything." "That's okay, Fuzzy-chan, we aren't asking," Ichigo responded, to which Rin bit back a laugh. "How dare you call me that, you insolent ant? Seriously, what was up with the Uzumakis and calling him Fuzzy-chan? Kushina and Mito did all the time. It was infuriating. What my grandson is trying to say is that we simply came to review his memories and see what we can learn," Sephiroth said. The Kyuubi seemed to grow serious and a little somber at that. "I assure you humans, it is not pretty. You would be careful what you wish for. Once you have seen my jailer's life, you cannot unsee it." The cages raised a questioning eyebrow, but continued their task regardless. The three cages quickly set up seals in the great chamber of Naruto's mindscape, and a seal in the center of their foreheads. The sealing array drawn on the walls of the chamber basically would copy all of Naruto's memories, and then paste them into the minds of whoever was wearing the required receiver seal on their forehead. The three flashed through hand seals, before bellowing out, "Memory Mirror, Fujin." Memory mirror. Seal. Something quite unexpected happened, however. This unique Uzumaki Fujin jutsu had never been attempted on a Jinchuriku before. Instead of just giving the cages all of Naruto's memories, they also gave them the memories of the Kyuubi and his past containers. Within a second they knew everything about Naruto Uzumaki, his heritage, his tragic life, the life of Kushina and Mito, and the life of the Kyuubi from the day he was split from the Gyuubi. Instantly after the jutsu was finished, all three men grew deathly pale, their eyes glistened with pure despair after witnessing the boy's life. Ichigo, however, fell to his knees. No Kushi-chan, how can this be? This boy is my grandson. Sephiroth, filled with rage. Yes, Ichigo, this young boy is the rightful heir to the throne of our once great village. He is the Prince of Uzu. One day he could have been king. But look at what has happened. I will not allow this injustice to be ignored. As the Shodai Uzukage, I swear to train this boy, and pass on all knowledge and training, to assure he never suffers like this again. Ichigo hardened his face into a look of strong anger and blazing determination. He too would train his grandson, the son of his little Kushi-chan. The three cages repeated the sealing progress, except they sealed all of the memories into a scroll. They then departed the boy's mindscape. Naruto watched the cages with confusion, as they all awoke and gave him sad looks. What just happened? He thought to himself. Ichigo soon got on his knee in front of the boy. Naruto, this is gonna be hard to accept, but the truth is, I'm your Gigi. Your mother was my daughter. Naruto's eyes grew massive and tears soon began to fall. He glumped Ichigo while crying his heart out. Rin and Sephiroth merely smiled in amusement. After the reunion was all over, they laid out the scroll onto the floor and drew a receiver seal on Naruto's forehead. They drew memory copying seals on their own bodies, so the boy would also gain all of their great knowledge and wisdom. Momorimira, Fujin, and in a brief second, Naruto knew everything. He knew of the history of Uzu, the lives and struggles of the men standing before him. He basically felt as if he had lived as Sephiroth, Rin, Ichigo, Mito, and his mother Kushina. He knew about the fox Kurama and how he got there. He knew about his father Minato, he knew about Jiraiya, and Hokage Jiji, and Kakashi. He knew of his mother and his father's hate for Danzo Shimura, and some of the darker secrets of Konoha. He knew about the masked man that unleashed the Kyuubi moments after his own birth. He knew everything, including katas for many forms of kenjutsu and taijutsu. He knew countless hundreds of nin, kin, and fujin jutsus. He memorized all of the research about the Hirishin, as his father had worked on it and explained it to his mother, this and the Rasengan. His gaze grew hard and determined. He got on his hands and knees and said one thing. Please train me Azukage-samas. The three lifted him off the ground and with proud smiles nodded. And so began the training of one who would one day be known across the land as Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, aka the Golden Fox, aka the Prince of Uzu, aka Naruto of the Limitless Shadow Clones, aka the Golden Maelstrom, and many more names. He was no longer the demon brat. But while over hundreds of years worth of knowledge and jutsus, even more if you add in the Kyuubi's memories, he still was a 6-year-old boy. All he had to do was build and train his body, reflexes, instincts, chakra control, calligraphy, among a few other things, and he would be the strongest shinobi since the Sage of the Six Paths. No time like the present to start, said Naruto. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. And so it began. With hundreds of clones the boy began his training. It had been close to 7 years since Naruto had started his training with his ancestors. In that time Naruto had learned all there was to know of Uzu. Uzu was a hidden shinobi village founded and led by the Uzumaki royal family. The very same family that Naruto himself was descended from. The kingdom he himself would have one day probably lead. His mother Kushina was its last princess, and he himself was the final prince. In the last 6 years Naruto had trained day and night with countless shadow clones. His chakra control was as perfect as it could be, for the vast amounts of chakra his body contained. He had his clones run chakra control exercises every day. They ran along the ceiling of the training room while dodging kunai and senbon while twirling kunai on their fingertips. He had shadow clones go outside the training room to water walk along the ocean. He sent shadow clones into the weapon and jutsu vaults to reread all of the countless jutsu scrolls contained within. He himself trained with his ancestors while wearing resistance seals to build his body to the point of perfection. Every day he had clones forage and garden for vegetables and rice, while he had others fish. He ate a balanced breakfast, lunch and dinner and now stood about 5 feet 4. He had a lean build with tight compact abs and lean, but rippling arms. Picture a mini Bruce Lee. He wore black ninja training clothes and had mastered the various different kenjutsu and taijutsu styles of the jutsu vaults. He had finally perfected his own taijutsu style he called the cornered fox style. It required extreme flexibility and agility. It was centered on feints and lightning-fast strikes and kicks. There was no defense to it. The only way to defend against an opponent was to move and contort your body to dodge. For him it was extremely deadly and effective. He manipulated wind chakra to his fingertips and used open hand swipes and slashes that could slice a mon's throat open, without even touching him. It was a very deadly style indeed. Through the years of training, Naruto had unlocked his mother's chakra chains, and the blue flame release of his grandfather Rin. Rin is Rin Okumura from Blue Exorcist. The blue flames were actually caused by a very high affinity to fire. Similar to the Nidaime Hokage's affinity to the water element. However, curious enough, Naruto's primary affinity was wind. Using his collected memories from the memory mirror Fuinjutsu, he had mastered both and used them in conjunction with each other. Ichigo had taught him how to use his Zambato, Zangetsu, and he taught him his very own high-speed movement and running technique, Flash Step. Sephiroth had taught him how to use his Black Nodashi, Masamune, and taught him how to control the wind element to levitate and fly. After, of course, he perfected wind manipulation training by slicing a waterfall in half, followed by cutting a small mountain in half. Rin had taught him how to forge and smith weapons, blades especially with chakra metal. He made Naruto master fire manipulation, and taught him how to wield his katana, Kurakara. Every day was a routine of eating, spamming shadow clones to work on all shinobi practices, while Naruto himself worked on his body, his calligraphy, and his tai and kenjutsu. In his off hours he would practice to recreate the Rasengan from his mother's memories, and together with his 3 ancestors they would work on recreating the Hiroshin. After almost 7 years they had accomplished all that they could. Naruto was ready to leave Uzu and return to Konoha and claim his inheritance. He said his final teary goodbyes to his grandfathers and had sealed all of the vaults into his body. He had sealing arrays drawn along his back which contained the Uzumaki treasury, the jutsu library, and the weapons armory. He wore black Anbu-style pants with black combat boots. He wore a tight-fitting black sleeveless zip-up vest, with one leather pauldron on his shoulder. On the pauldron was a silver fox head with a ring hanging from its mouth. He's wearing Cloud Strife's outfit from Advent Children, on his back was Zangetsu, and in his hand was Masamune in a reverse grip. On his hip was Kurakara. Goodbye guys, I will make you all proud. One day, the Uzumaki name will hold great respect and prestige again. He put on a yellow fox mask he had found within the ruble of the village, probably remnants of a carnival. The Kiden mask from Legend of Zelda. He looked one final time at Uzu and then with a burst of speed he flew into the air. His descent slowed and he threw a Hiroshin kunai he had forged as hard as he could toward Konoha. The gates of Konoha. Izumo and Kotetsu were standing gate guard duty again. Bored out of their minds they kicked back and relaxed. Kotetsu, Izumo said, who would you rather bang? Kurenai when she's on her period, or guy with a vagina? All of the color drained from Kotetsu's face and he looked toward his best friend. You're sick, you know that? He deadpanned. Suddenly Kotetsu stood and smacked his partner. Look. He pointed toward the figure slowly approaching the gate. A man wearing a yellow fox mask, dressed all in black with a massive sword on his back, and very long nodashi in his hand was making his way toward them. Halt. Who are you and what business do you have in Konoha? Kotetsu asked with rare scene seriousness. Naruto stopped at the gate and looked at the two. The gate guards flinched and pulled kunai. Naruto didn't say anything, he just tilted his head to the side much like a curious animal would. His swords disappeared in a flash of blue flames, sealed once more into his body. I am here to see the Hokage. I have some information regarding a missing person that he would be glad to receive. I assure you it is of the utmost importance. Would you please send somebody to escort me to him? Kotetsu looked to his partner and nodded his head. Izumo nodded back and shunshined to the Hokage building. He was back a few moments later. If you will please follow me, I will escort you to Hokage-sama. Naruto nodded his head and followed after the man. He could sense the Anbu hidden around him, no doubt making sure he didn't do anything stupid. The pair reached the Hokage building in no time and climbed the stairs. They walked past the secretary who eyed the mysterious fox-masked Naruto and came in front of the doors to Hiruzen's office. With a knock and a shout of, "Enter!" Izumo opened the doors and escorted Naruto inside. The Saitame watched the mysterious stranger with great curiosity. "Welcome to Konoha. What can I do for you, mister?" Naruto stepped forward and tilted his head to the side once more. "Please tell me you haven't forgotten me, Gigi?" The Hokage's eyes grew wide and he ordered Izumo and all of the Anbu out of the room at once. After they left, he leaned forward. Naruto? Is that really you?" Naruto could sense the hope radiating off of his grandfather figure. He reached his hand up and removed his mask. Tears threatened to fall from his shimmering blue eyes. "Yeah, Gigi, it's me." The Saitame burst forward and embraced his surrogate grandson. Tears fell from his eyes and he asked, "How? I thought you had died? Where were you all this time?" Naruto laughed and hugged the man tight. "Call Kakashi and I will explain everything." The Saitame grew confused. How had Naruto known about Kakashi? But he didn't question it. He knew Naruto would explain soon, so he summoned an Anbu to retrieve Kakashi at once. A few minutes passed and soon Kakashi strolled into the office. "Yo," he said and approached the desk. He looked curiously upon the once again masked Naruto. Naruto approached the doors of the office and flew through seals so fast the Hokage could hardly keep up. Once he was done the seals, he raised his hand to the door and activated the strongest possible silence and privacy seal he knew of. He stood and faced Kakashi and removed his mask. "Hey Ni-san." Kakashi's eyes grew wide before Naruto slugged him in the stomach. Kakashi flew back against the wall comically and struggled to regain his breath. Naruto? Tears fell from Kakashi's eyes and he fell to his knees. He begged Naruto to forgive him. He explained that he had no idea that Naruto was his sensei's son. Hell, he didn't even know Kushina was pregnant. He was an Anbu and after the guilt of Obito and Rin's deaths he was hardly ever around the village. He took constant A and S ranks to help keep his mind off of his loss. Yes, he still loved Minato like a father, but he was so ashamed about his friend's deaths he could hardly look him in the eyes. Naruto sat down and urged the others to sit down as well cause this would be a long tale. He could have just used the memory mirror jutsu, but he wanted some secrets to himself. So after a few hours he finished telling the two of his life, his training, his ancestors, who after he left Uzu had finally closed off their chakras and returned to their spirits in the afterlife. He told them of the mix-up with the memory jutsu and how he now had the memories of the three Azukages, Mito, Kushina, and the Great Fox himself. And that's what happened, Gigi, Ni-san. To say the two shinobi were shocked would be an understatement. They had to pick their jaws up off of the floor. Hiruzen quickly regained his composure. "So what now, Naruto? What are your plans?" Naruto thought for a minute and then smiled. "Well, I promised you when I was a kid that one day I would take that hat, and I meant it, Gigi. I want to join Konoha. And I want to finally claim my inheritance. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Prince of Uzu and son of the Yondaime Hokage. I intend for the world to know that too." The two powerful shinobi beamed with pride at the young boy. "So you want to join the academy, Naruto?" the Hokage asked. Peeved. "Hell no. If it's all right, Gigi, I would like you guys to test my capabilities with a fight between me and Ni-san here. I am not some snot-nosed academy student. I ask that you allow me to fight Ni-san in the Chunin preliminary arena in the Forest of Death, with the Jonin present. If I perform acceptably, you give me my inheritance and I announce my return to the village. You give Memi Genin headband and I will join whatever squad you want. If I lose, I will attend the academy and wait until you think I am ready to claim my inheritance. Deal?" The Hokage thought about the proposal and said, "Deal. Is this all right with you, Kakashi?" Kakashi shook his head affirmatively and eyes smiled at Naruto. "You're in for quite the challenge, Oto. I hope you're ready." Naruto beamed at the man he considered his new big brother. "Always, Ni-san. I will see you guys later. I want to go see old man Ichiraku and Ayame and get some ramen. It's been so long since I've had my ramen, I can hardly wait." The two men laughed but decided they would tag along and treat him to it. They had missed Naruto for so long, and Kakashi finally had a chance to make it up to Naruto for not being there for him. Damn it, he would be the best big brother anyone could ask for. The Ichirakus had a tearful reunion with their number one customer, and Ayame had gone positively red when she had seen the now very handsome, very muscular young man that was once the cute little Naruto-chan. After many bowls of ramen, and many laughs and stories, Naruto had checked himself into a hotel promising the Hokage he could wait till after the fight was over with Kakashi before he moved into his parents' estate. Kakashi had volunteered to put Naruto up in his house, but Naruto had declined. He thanked him for the thought but said it wasn't necessary. Kakashi let it drop and turned himself in for the night as well. A week had passed and all of the Jonin shinobi had come to watch the fight between the mysterious Golden Fox and Kakashi Hatake. The council had come as well and the Hokage had summoned Jiraiya, claiming that it had to do with Naruto. He sent the old pervert a message explaining some of the details, but most importantly that Naruto was alive and well, and had challenged Kakashi to a fight. Jiraiya had raced home once he got the message and was now standing next to his old sensei looking over the two shinobi facing each other in the arena. The Hokage silenced all of the whispering shinobi and took his place on the arena floor. This shinobi has come to Konoha to join our forces. To prove himself worthy, he has decided to showcase his skills in a friendly exhibition fight against one of our best. So let us begin. The Golden Fox vs Kakashi Hatake. Hajime. Naruto remained calm. Kakashi-san, you may want to take me seriously. I think you may need your Sharingan for this. Naruto said. In due time, Fox-san. I merely want to test you a little first. Kakashi replied. Okay Kakashi. Don't say I didn't warn you. Lesson 1 Taijutsu. In a burst of flash step, Naruto appeared in front of Kakashi, open palm already speeding toward his chest. No one could believe the speed the boy had just shown. No one even saw him move. Kakashi blocked and retaliated with his on taijutsu, and soon the two were flying through punches and kicks. Naruto was bending and weaving, and turning acrobatically in the air to dodge all of Kakashi's blows. A few times Naruto was hit, but he just shrugged off the pain and seemed to be in good shape. The same could not be said for Kakashi. His Jonin vest was in tatters from Naruto's wind-enforced swipes. Asuma's cigarette fell from his mouth and his eyes widened. He's using wind chakra along his fingertips. Guy nodded. His taijutsu is indeed deadly. I've never seen this fighting style before. He added seriously. The Hokage overheard this and decided to give his own piece of wisdom. You are correct, Guy. The fact is, this is Fox-san's own taijutsu style. He created it himself. He calls it the cornered fox style. Notice that he does not block. The only defense this style uses is dodges. It requires extreme flexibility and awareness. Guy's eyes grew wide. How youthful. To think someone this young could create such a powerful style on his own. Fox-san burns with the spirit of youth. He exclaimed, much to the discomfort of the surrounding Jonin. After a few more exchanges, Naruto and Kakashi leapt away from each other. Kakashi was breathing a little harder than normal, but Naruto seemed unaffected. What stamina, he thought to himself. I told you, Kakashi, don't underestimate me. Naruto said with a bit of humor in his voice. I guess you were right. That could have been very bad had you actually wanted to kill me, Fox-san. With that, Kakashi raised his headband, unveiling his Sharingan. Lesson 2, Ninjutsu. Fire style. Fire Dragon Jutsu. Kakashi launched the Fire Dragon at Naruto, who didn't move. He flashed through hand seals faster than Kakashi had and simply said. Fire style. Fire Dragon Jutsu. A larger fire dragon sped towards Kakashi's, only Naruto's was made of blue flames. The two jutsu crashed into each other. Naruto's was stronger, however, so after it cancelled out Kakashi's, it kept moving towards him. Everyone had to pick their jaws off of the floor except Kakashi and Hiruzen, who knew of Naruto's bloodline. Kakashi leapt out of the way of the incredible fire dragon and sped through more hand signs. Water style. Water Trumpet Jutsu. Kakashi released the built-up torrent of water at Naruto, who decided to take flight into the air. He hovered mid-air for a few seconds to the shock of the stunned crowd before flying through hand seals of his own. With a deep breath and cry of, wind style, great breakthrough. He launched a concentrated blast of air at Kakashi. Earth style. Earth Wall Jutsu. Kakashi slammed his palms upon the ground and summoned up a wall to defend against the crushing blast of wind. Naruto fell to the ground and vanished with a burst of flash step. He summoned Masamune in a flash of blue flames, and when he reappeared he cut the wall of earth down. "That's the legendary Masamune," Yugao exclaimed. "How on earth did he get the great sword of the Shodai Azukage?" Everyone looked toward the Hokage. Now, all will be revealed soon, Neko. After the wall fell down, Kakashi was nowhere to be seen. Naruto's danger senses flared, so he rolled out of the way just as Kakashi was rising from his headhunter jutsu. "Nice try, Kakashi, but that isn't enough to defeat me." Kakashi nodded and pulled out some shuriken. He threw one and flashed through seals. Shadow Shuriken Jutsu. The 3 shuriken became 30 and flew towards Naruto, who cut through all of them with his wind-reinforced Masamune. He again disappeared in a burst of flash step and swung at Kakashi. Kakashi ducked and rolled and threw a kunai which Naruto easily deflected. Naruto opened one hand and shot a golden chakra chain at Kakashi. By now some of the crowd was connecting some dots, so Naruto moved his mask to the side of his head, revealing his face after Kakashi dodged his chains. "That's Naruto," Asuma yelled. All of the Jonin looked shocked. "Namikaze-sama's kid? The Kyuubi Jinchuriku?" Kurenai asked. "Yeah, no doubt about it. Look at the whisker marks. The blonde hair and blue eyes like his father. Hell, he has his mother's chakra chains. Looks like the cat is out of the bag, Ni-san." Naruto laughed. "Sure looks like it, Ototo." Kakashi responded with a smile. "Well, let's give him a good show." Naruto held his hands up. Resistance seals. Kai. Gravity seals. Kai. Chakra restriction seals. Kai. The ground around Naruto was crushed under the sudden release of his chakra. His body was engulfed in a tower of blue chakra. Everyone in the room was now shocked by the sheer pressure pressing down on them, Hokage and Kakashi included. He was holding his own against a Jonin, and the whole time he was holding back. In a show of pure speed, Naruto sped forward, leaving after images in his wake, and after resealing his sword re-engaged with Kakashi in a flurry of taijutsu. Kakashi tried to block, but his hits were too hard. After a sudden palm strike to the gut which took the air right out of him, he rocketed backwards. Without hand seals, Naruto summoned a shadow clone which kicked Kakashi into the air. Naruto flew at him and grabbed him by the vest. He spun and flew towards the ground, slamming Kakashi to the floor of the arena. Kakashi blinked his eyes upon and saw he was surrounded by shadow clones, each holding either Zangetsu or Masamune against him. Naruto stood back with his arms across his chest, smiling. "So how did I do, Gigi?" He called up to his Hokage and grandfather figure. "Great, Naruto, but I think all the Jonin would like some answers." Collectively, the Jonin and the Shinobi Council shook their heads rapidly up and down. Naruto nodded and dispelled the shadow clones. He picked Kakashi up and checked to see if he was okay. Kakashi smiled and said he was just caught off guard. Naruto resealed all of his seals, and sealed away the fox mask. Naruto took in a deep breath and with a hardened gaze and a voice filled with a deep timbre began his tale. His presence demanded respect and oozed nobility but no arrogance. He came off a strong, mature shinobi. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. 6 years ago, after being beaten and raped, I was tossed into a river." At this everyone looked down ashamed, some looked furious. "I awoke upon the shores of my family's home village Uzu. There in the village I discovered my heritage, and found the sealed spirits of the Shodai, Nidaime, and Saitame Azukages." The Jonin took a gasp. "Yes, 3 of my ancestors. My grandfather Ichigo, great-grandfather Rin, and great-great-grandfather Sephiroth. Through a trick of fate they gave me the memories of my mother. They trained me for the past 6 years in Tai, Nin, Ken, Kin, and Fujinjutsu. I unlocked my great-grandfather's blue flame bloodline, and my mother's chakra chains. After they trained me and taught me, they gave me their swords and passed on the will and the fate of the Uzumaki clan to me. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Prince of Uzu, head of Uzumaki clan, and son of Princess Kushina Uzumaki, and Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. Through my mother's memories and with my mastery of Fujinjutsu after being trained by the 3 greatest Fujinjutsu masters, I recreated the Hirishin, after recreating my father's Rasengan. He proved this by forming a Rasengan in one hand, and pulled a tri-bladed black Hirishin kunai in the other. He threw the kunai and disappeared in a yellow flash. He reappeared across the room and with a shout of Rasengan, slammed the Rasengan into the wall. The Jonin looked shocked, as did the council. The elders looked emotionless per usual, but inside they were jumping for joy and plotting on ways to control the boy. Jiraiya came down and hugged Naruto, happy to see his godson. The Jonin clapped and came down to welcome the smiling Naruto back to the village. The Hokage silenced the room and approached Naruto, proud of the boy. "Naruto, I am happy to welcome you home as a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village." He gave Naruto a Konoha headband which he happily accepted. He tied it on his bicep and bowed to his Hokage. The Hokage laughed and shook his head. "Are you sure you want to be a genin though? You could be a jonin. Hell boy, you could probably take the Hokage hat now." Sume Inuzuka barked with a laugh. Naruto and the jonin laughed as well, but Naruto replied, "Thank you Inuzuka-san, but I'm not ready for that yet. I may be trained, but I need mission experience as well as leadership experience. I will become a genin and grow as a shinobi. I will form bonds with my age group, and one day I will surpass my father and my ancestors and be the best Kage I can. But today, I think genin suits me fine." The collected shinobi minus the council elders smiled and nodded toward the boy. The Hokages smiled and nodded in agreement. However, a genin cannot claim the position of clan head, so he decided to make a compromise. "I hereby pronounce you special genin. This new position will be very much the same as standard genin, with the exception that it will represent your advanced maturity to your peers, and allow you to claim your clan seat. Any objections?" He looked to his surrounding council members. "None? Good. Congratulations Naruto." The jonin gave the kid some thumbs up and well wishes. However, the women of the crowd were having certain thoughts about the boy. The way this kid talks and stands just screams alpha. If only he were a few years older. Hell, the kid's gonna be quite the looker, just like his old man, if he isn't already hot damn. Thought Sume. If I wasn't in love with Hayate-kun and he was a little older, I'd give him a shot. Thought Yugao. This boy. No young man will make a fine ninja. But whoever gets him as a husband will be one lucky woman. Thought Kurenai. Naruto Uzumaki, you are interesting. You and me don't seem all that different. I think I'm gonna keep an eye on you, Foxy-kun. Thought Anko with a shit-eating grin. 3 days later, the entire village was gathered in front of the Hokage Tower. Everybody was whispering and gossiping. Hiruzen overlooked his villagers and silence soon filled the village. 6 years ago a great crime took place. I need not remind you of the details, but we lost the son of the Yondaime. Everyone looked depressed at this. It is with great pleasure though that today I welcome him back to the village. May I present Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Prince of Uzu and new head of the Uzumaki clan. The villagers looked on with wide eyes as Naruto stepped forward dressed in his usual ninja outfit. Only this time he wore a Uzu headband as a belt buckle. Over his black vest he wore a long black sage cloak with blue flames along the bottom and the sleeves, and his Konoha headband wrapped around his bicep. "I'm finally home," he said to the stunned crowd, who soon burst into applause and cheering. Some villagers with tears streaming down their faces. "I have suffered much in this village." Again people looked depressed, but I never stopped loving it. I understand why many of you were angry. I do not hate you, however. I was a constant reminder of all that many of you had lost. In a sick way I would like to almost thank you. The events of my childhood, however horrible, made me strong and they made me who I am today. I promise you all I will protect you as a shinobi of Konoha. And one day I will protect you as your Hokage. I swear this upon my pride and honor as both an Uzumaki and as my father's son. Thank you. To say the crowd was stunned would be another understatement. With tears of joy a great majority erupted into applause once again. There was a small majority, however, that clung to their hatred of the boy. Naruto, however, was truly happy. He was back home, and he could finally have the life he always wanted. And he deserved. It is with great pride I finally give Naruto his inheritance, and give him clan status. Naruto, here is the key to your parents' home, and here are the final letters to you from your parents. Open them later. I now pronounce you head of the Uzumaki clan here in Konoha. Good luck. After everything had died down, Naruto ventured into the clan district where he found his parents' home. It was modest in size, 2 stories with a great stone wall surrounding it to give it privacy. Naruto approached the massive iron gate. Naruto slowly swung it open. He closed the gate behind him and approached the house. The lawn was well maintained. Turns out it was a weekly D-rank mission paid for by the Hokage, and there were flowers surrounding the property. Naruto walked up to the front door and bit his thumb. He swiped blood along the door and a seal array glowed to life. He walked inside and after seeing how dusty it was decided to begin cleaning. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto had finished cleaning his parents' house. He had discovered the sealed library in the basement that his father had used. The library was massive and it had many empty rooms with heavily sealed doors which he filled with his clan's jutsu and weapons. One room was even filled with the money and gold, and jewels from the Uzu treasury. So now the basement had his father's library and study, his clan's armory, his money vault, and a filled jutsu library. He created 100 shadow clones and had them read every book and scroll that he did not bring from Uzu, while he sat at his father's desk. Naruto pulled the scroll that the Hokage gave him and opened it. 2 letters popped out, both addressed to him, along with 2 journals, one red and the other blue. These were his father's journal and his mother's diary. Naruto set the 2 books off to the side, opened the letters. Dear Naruto, I'm so sorry that things turned out this way. I wish I had more time to tell you just how much you mean to me, and how much your father and I love you. I had such hopes for you in life, and I still do now even though I'm gone. Please be a good boy, eat well, study hard and meet a fine girl to love. Make sure she's strong and isn't some pathetic fangirl databane. I'm so sorry that I'm not around for you now. I was so happy when I found out I was gonna be a mother and I love you with all my heart. Oh, and if that Ero Sennin tries to turn you into a pervert like him, kick in the crotch for me. I know I shouldn't ask much of you, considering I failed to be there, but I always hope to one day rebuild our once great clan with your father. Maybe one day you can do that for me. Love, your mother Kushina. Naruto cried and held the letter close to his chest. I love you, Mom, I could never hate you. I wish I could have met you, but I know that you love me, and I will make you proud. After Naruto collected himself, he opened the next letter. Hey Naruto, it's your dad Minato. I hope you can one day forgive me for the burden I'm about to place on you, but please know that I have no other choice. The Kyuubi is upon us and I need to stop it. I'm so sorry, but I know that one day you will be seen as the hero that you are. Son, grow strong, find love, and be a good man. I know that you can do these things because I and your mother believe in you. I love you, son, and my hope is that one day you can do the impossible and get rid of the hate in the shinobi world. One day you may even get rid of the Kyuubi's hate. Promise me you will at least do your best. Love, your dad Minato. Again Naruto cried. Don't worry dad, I'll do my best, and I will succeed. After Naruto was done he ventured upstairs, leaving his clones to study. He went up to the 2nd floor and found his parents' room. Inside he found a copy of his father's famous coat hanging in the closet. One day, I will wear you. But I'm not ready yet. After he checked around his new bedroom he walked into the room next door. As soon as he stepped foot inside, however, he fell to his knees. It was a nursery, and on the opposite wall sat a crib. Later, Naruto was standing in the training ground behind his house. It was an expansive meadow surrounded by forest. In the corner was a large koi pond with a massive tree to offer shade. In the center of the back lawn was a training area. Targets and dummies to practice weapons and jutsu. A white outlined taijutsu sparring ring, and logs for kicks and punches. Naruto, however, was in the center of the sparring ring going through different katas of his kenjutsu styles. He could sense Jiraiya walking toward him, so he sealed his sword and faced his godfather. What's up, Ero Sennin? Jiraiya face vaulted into the dirt. Don't call me that Gaki. I am the great toad sage of Mount Myoboku. The ladies swoon at the sight of the gallant Jiraiya. He proceeded to do his kabuki dance. Know you're a shameless pervert, who women quite often tend to beat the shit out of. Naruto deadpanned. Again Jiraiya face vaulted. So what's up, Ero Sennin? This time, however, Jiraiya grew serious. Look Naruto, I want to say I'm sorry for not being the... Save it. Jiraiya, I already forgave you. Look, you had just lost your student, your surrogate son. I understand. Hell, I look just like my dad, so I know it must have been painful to see me. I'm not some brat anymore. I was raised and trained by 3 of the best, and I learned about my heritage, and my family through their and my mother's memories. As awful as it is to say it, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for what happened to me. I'm not saying that everything is sunshine and rainbows, however. Naruto paused and looked off into the sky. A look of serious contemplation marred his whiskered face. Deep down inside, bottled up and repressed, I'm sure lingers some angst. Some resentment to you, and the village still lingers. It's deep beneath the surface, but they're all the same. It will go away in time, especially when I add good memories of this place and its people to replace the bad ones. But the fact is, Naruto turned to his godfather and smiled. I forgive you, Jiraiya. Jiraiya was a bit shocked. He had expected Naruto to hate him, to shout and scream and maybe even hit him, but the boy surprised him with this seriousness and maturity. Well, Gaki, how about I be here for you now? Naruto smiled. I'd love that arrow. Jiraiya-sensei. Jiraiya beamed in pride. So you shocked the hell out of me and everyone else. Kami kid, to think you taught yourself the Rasengan and the Hirishin. You're one hell of a prodigy. Naruto laughed. No, I'm not, I'm no prodigy. It was hard, but again I had 3 great teachers and all of their knowledge along with my mother's and a few others. I worked hard all day every day for 6 years. Not to mention I cheated and abused the living hell out of the shadow clones for all my chakra and mental exercises. I guess you could say I'm a master of hard work, determination, and unorthodox training methods. Jiraiya smiled greatly at that. He knew he liked this kid. Naruto walked toward his godfather and smiled once more. Oh Jiraiya, I almost forgot. There is one thing I need you to do, before I can totally forgive you 100%. Jiraiya smiled a small sad smile. Anything kid, just name it. Naruto was now standing in front of him. His smile suddenly turned sadistic. Take your punishment. He pulled his leg back tight, and let it loose right into the man's balls. UGGHHHHHHHH. Scratch that, I fucking hate this kid. Damn you Kushina. 2 days later, Naruto was a little nervous. Today was the day of the Genin exams. The Hokage told him he didn't even need to show up, he was already a Genin. But Naruto wanted to attend, and take the exams so he could begin to make bonds and friendships with his soon-to-be fellow Genin, as well as get a bit of an idea of where his peers were at in their training. He was nervous about how these kids his age will react to him. Naruto opened the door to the classroom and walked inside. All eyes were on him the moment he did so. Oh, you must be Naruto, I'm Iruka Amino, and this is Mizuki. It's nice to meet you, Naruto. Naruto smiled at the man and shook his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Iruka-sensei. Iruka smiled, he liked this boy already. He felt horrible when the truth about the boy's parentage was revealed. For years he had hated the boy for the deaths of his parents, but after he learned the truth he was greatly ashamed. This boy was innocent, and had a horrible burden placed upon his shoulders. He deserved to be hailed as a hero, but sadly he wasn't. Naruto, would you please introduce yourself to the class? Iruka asked with a smile. Sure, sensei. Hi everyone, I'm Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. You can call me whatever you like, just plain Naruto is fine. I like training, reading, and ramen. I enjoy kenjutsu and fuinjutsu. My dream is to be the best Hokage this village has ever seen. Naruto rubbed the back of his head and smiled. Then he walked to an empty seat and sat down. He couldn't stand the whispers and the looks he was getting, however. All the girls had blushes on their faces and tried not to stare, and some of the boys were looking at him with envy. One boy in particular stared at him questioningly, but when Naruto turned to look at him, he went back to brooding in the corner. Iruka clapped his hands. Alright everyone, I'm gonna hand out your tests now. You have 1 hour to finish the written exam. Naruto looked at the test before him. This was way too easy. The moment Iruka told him them to begin, he picked up his pencil and in a flash filled out the paper. He put his pencil back and with his usual smile just sit back and pulled out a book to read to pass the time. The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. His father's favorite book. His too, actually. The Hokage's office. The Jonin were all sitting down watching the Genin exams through the Hokage's crystal ball. Kami, that kid's fast. He's gonna be a legend just like his old man. Asuma said with a smirk. Ho ho, I don't doubt it, Asuma. Hiruzen said with a smile. So whose team is he gonna be on? I mean, the kid's no ordinary freakin' Genin. He wiped the floor with Kakashi, no offense. Said Anko with obvious mirth in her voice. None taken, Anko, it's true. I really want him on my team, but there isn't a whole lot I can teach him. Truthfully, he's beyond my level and skill set. In a year or two he will be deserving of the SS class like his father. Remember, Minato-sensei only got that ranking because he had the Hirishin. Naruto is 12 and he knows the Hirishin. Not to mention his obvious skill with Kenjutsu, Ninjutsu, Taijutsu, and the Fuinjutsu required to recreate the Hirishin. This kid will surpass us all at the current rate he's going. Hiruzen smiled at that. It's true, and the boy deserves it too. If I'm alive to see him reach Jonin, I may very well make him my successor. All the Jonin were surprised, but they understood. Back in the classroom. Okay class. Follow me to the training yard. All of the genin hopefuls walked outside to the training yard and prepared for the next part of the exam. Naruto waited patiently for his name to be called into the sparring arena. After all of the other kids had their turns, it was finally down to Naruto. Okay, next up, Naruto vs Sasuke. Naruto nodded and entered the ring. He studied the Uchiha across from him who kept his hands in his pockets. Okay guys, take your stances. Sasuke got into his family's stance, and Naruto stepped into a loose boxing stance. He didn't want to kill the kid. Hajime. Naruto just stood and studied his opponent. Sasuke did the same, and for the next few minutes neither of them moved. Come on Dobi, attack me. Naruto didn't rise to the goading. He just stood patiently. Well, if you're not gonna come at me, I will come at you. Sasuke ran at him with his fist reared back. Naruto just dodged his punch. He continued to dodge and block all of Sasuke's attacks, which proved to increase the Uchiha's anger. Finally, after a few moments of this, Naruto saw an opening and with a chakra-infused flicked the Uchiha in the forehead, and right out of the ring. Silence. Silence followed for a few seconds until Kiba Inuzuka burst out laughing, along with all the other boys. The girls, however, were scandalized and rushed to help their precious Sasuke-kun. Winner Naruto, said Iruka with a cough. Dobi. Naruto looked back at Sasuke, who was absolutely livid. Fight me again. Naruto turned away. Later, but for now let's continue on with the exam, replied Naruto. This pushed Sasuke past the boiling point. Don't you walk away from me. The young Uchiha flew through hand seals before fire style, grand fireball jutsu. Iruka tried to stop it, but he was too late. Everyone watched shocked while Naruto, still with his back turned, was engulfed in flames. That's why everyone was equally shocked when after the fire died down, Naruto was perfectly fine. He turned and faced the Uchiha and unsealed his Masamune before flash stepping. The class watched wide-eyed. Instructors included as Naruto appeared standing behind Sasuke with his massive Nodashi resting over his shoulder, but against Sasuke's throat. Do that again, you arrogant piece of shit, and I will not hesitate to remove your head from your body. Look, if you want to fight later, that's fine. But when a match is ended, the fight is over. What you just did was cowardly and stupid. If I had died, or even been injured, you would be in jail right now for treason. If you paid attention, you would see I already have my headband. You just unlawfully attacked a genin of Konoha. I could kill you or arrest you right now, but I won't. The only reason I'm here today is to get to know with the genin I will be serving with. That invitation still extends to you. Now, if you try this shit again, I will end you. Got it? Good. With that, Naruto calmly sealed his Nodashi and walked away. The entire class heard his speech, and they were a little terrified. This Naruto was not someone to screw with. I think he's learned his lesson, Iruka-sensei. Can we continue on now, please? Iruka just nodded dumbly. Back in the Hokage's office, the Jonin were not impressed with the Uchiha. Many of them were scowling, but Enko Mitarashi was laughing her ass off. Did you see the look on his face? I think he was about to shit his pants. I got to hand it to that Gaki Naruto. Even I would have been intimidated by that speech. The Jonin nodded in agreement. Hey, the kid's right though, Sasuke just committed treason. If Naruto wanted to, he could have killed him, and been within rights to do so. Hiruzen sighed. That maybe, but the paperwork, not to mention the backlash from the civilian council, would have put me in an early grave. There were a few snickers at that. Back at the training field. Now everyone, when I call your name, please come over here while I grade your throwing abilities. Once again Naruto waited until it was his turn. When he was called up, he calmly strolled up, and in flash of blue flames his hands were filled with kunai and shuriken. He threw them all at once and they all hit their mark perfectly. Great job Naruto. So far you've gotten the top scores, Iruka said with a smile. Ha ha, thanks Iruka-sensei, said Naruto while sheepishly grinning and rubbing the back of his head. He's so humble, thought Iruka. Okay class, let's go back inside and we will do the final exam. After everyone was once again seated, Naruto waited until it was his turn. Once his name was called, he stood in front of the class and the instructors. Okay Naruto, I need you to perform the kawarimi. Naruto kawarimi'd with a stunned Iruka, and then re-kawarimi'd so he was back in his original place. Excellent Naruto. Now I need you to henge. Naruto nodded and hanged into his father. The class looked in shock as there in front of them stood Minato Namikaze. Naruto dispelled the henge and again rubbed the back of his head. Ha ha, sorry, couldn't resist. Iruka smiled. That's fine Naruto. Now I need you to do a clone. Sensei, can it be any clone? Naruto asked. I guess so Naruto, why do you ask? Iruka asked with confusion on his face. Well you see sensei, I have too much chakra to do the normal clone, and they end up looking sick and dead. I can do the shadow clone though. Iruka's eyes widened. Okay Naruto, go ahead. Thanks sensei. Shadow clone jutsu. 50 clones appeared in the room, some hanging from the ceiling upside down. Later. Okay class, I have your scores. Sasuke Uchiha, you are the new Rookie of the Year. Sakura Haruno, you are the new Kunoichi of the Year. Naruto, since this is your first day of the academy, even though you got the best scores for the examination, you are unfortunately this year's dead last. Naruto laughed. It's okay sensei, Gigi explained that to me earlier. Look, I became a genin a few days ago. I only attended today to get to know who I would be working with in the future, and I'm happy I came. Titles like Rookie of the Year and Dead Last mean nothing to me. Heck, they mean nothing in the shinobi world anyway. He's so mature, thought Iruka, and all of the jonin watching. You're right Naruto, said Iruka. Okay class is dismissed, be here tomorrow for team placement. As everyone stood up to leave, Naruto spoke. Hey, does anyone want to go get something to eat? I'm buying. Several students stopped and looked back at him. Choji spoke up, sure sounds great. How about it Shikamaru? Sounds alright, said the lazy Shikamaru with a shrug. I'm in, said Kiba. Arigato en Naruto-kun, stuttered the shy Hinata. Shino merely nodded his head yes. Sasuke just kept walking, Sakura the fangirl that she was just followed after Sasuke. Ino looked at the cute mysterious blonde and blushed. Sounds like fun. Naruto smiled wide. Great, let's go. Ichiraku's. Hey Gigi, one large miso ramen for me, and whatever my new friends want on me. The old ramen chef smiled. You got it kid. Ayame smiled as well. So you made friends Naruto-kun? Sure did Nei-chan. Meet Konoha's newest genins. This is Ino, Choji, Shikamaru, Hinata, Kiba, and Shino. They all waved. Well, any friend of Naruto-kun's is a friend of mine. So what can I get you? After everyone had ordered and began eating, it was Kiba that spoke up. So Naruto, my mom told me you kicked a jonin's butt last week. Is that true? Everyone looked at him, obviously hearing about it as well. Ha ha, yeah it is. Naruto responded while rubbing the back of his head. Well, I wouldn't say you kicked my butt, Oto. Kakashi said as he sat next to his surrogate little brother. Ni-san, so come to celebrate with me. Kakashi eyes smiled. You did very well today Oto. I was proud of the way you handled a certain situation. I know your father would be as well. Naruto smiled and looked down at his feet. I hope so Ni-san, I really do. Kakashi ruffled Naruto's hair and ordered some ramen for himself. Naruto introduced his new friends to Kakashi. He explained that Kakashi was his father's student, and in his eyes that made him his Ni-san. After a good few hours of eating and laughing and telling stories, Naruto paid for everyone's food and said goodnight. His new friends thanked him and he told them all he would see them tomorrow. As Naruto was walking back through the village, he saw something strange. Mizuki was climbing out of a window with a large scroll strapped along his back. Something was wrong with this picture, so Naruto made a clone to go back and find Kakashi, while he followed Mizuki into the forest. Naruto lost track of time as he tailed Mizuki from the shadows. He came to a halt as Mizuki stopped running and leaned the scroll against an abandoned shack. Naruto took this time to quietly send shadow clones to set up a perimeter. Naruto took this time to act. He sent his chakra chains out to retrieve the scroll, and once he had it secure he sealed it within his body. What are you doing out here with the forbidden scroll of sealing Mizuki? The Hokage's office. Kakashi and the Hokage watched as Iruka showed up and demanded to know why Mizuki stole the scroll. He then fought with Mizuki, who tried to impale him with a Fuma shuriken, but Naruto intervened and beat the ever-living shit out of him. The forest. Naruto slung Mizuki over his shoulder and unsealed the scroll. It fell to the ground and he caught a glimpse of exploding shadow clone jutsu. That will come in handy, Naruto thought as he memorized the hand seals. He and Iruka walked back to Konoha together. Thanks for saving me from that shuriken, Naruto. No problem, Iruka-sensei, you would have done the same for me. Naruto woke up and looked at the picture of his mother and father on the nightstand. Wish me luck, Mom, Dad. He took a quick shower and changed into his usual attire. He put on his black cloak with the blue flames and walked into the kitchen. He made a quick breakfast, ate it, and then headed toward the academy. He still had an hour to kill, so he went into a weapon shop that was on the way. The grizzled man that was behind the counter looked at the blonde and smiled. Well, I was wondering when you were gonna pay me a visit, Namikaze-san. The blonde smiled back at the man and responded, oh, you were, huh, and why is that? The big man gave a hearty chuckle and pulled out a Hirishin kunai. Well, I heard you knew your father's jutsu. Who do you think made all of these kunai for him? Naruto walked forward and shook the man's hand. Well, I guess that would be you. I, however, already made my own. He pulled out one of his custom three-pronged kunai. The man took it into his hand and inspected it. Well, look at that baby. You are a gifted weaponsmith, this is incredible craftsmanship. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Ha ha, thanks. To tell you the truth, I'm kind of out of a forge right now. Do you think you could make me some more like that one? The man nodded in the affirmative. Of course, how many do you want? Naruto smiled and unsealed a large stack of ryo onto the table. As many as this can buy me. The man laughed again. I like you, kid. Tell you what, if you ever get around to building your own forge, you come see me for the metals you need. I'll give you a hell of a deal. Naruto shook the man's hand. Well, it's a deal, mister? Name's Tanaka, kid? Naruto nodded. Pleasure to meet you, Tanaka. The pleasure is all mine. Hey, I hear from some friends of mine that you have in your possession the famous Masamune. Is that true? Naruto smiled. Yeah, it's a family heirloom. Naruto unsealed the Masamune. Whoa, it's just as beautiful as I imagined. Hey Tenten, get in here, you gotta see this. A girl, maybe a year older than Naruto, walked in from the back room. What is it, da? Oh my Kami, is that the Masamune? Naruto chuckled and rubbed the back of his head again. Yeah, it was a family heirloom. Nice to meet you, Tenten, I'm Naruto. The girl's eyes grew big. Uzumaki-sama, I studied the Uzumaki clan extensively. I read all about the famous swords and swordsmen. I'm a really huge fan of your mother, Kushina-sama. Naruto smiled and his eyes grew a little heavy. Yeah, she was great, wasn't she? Oh, I'm sorry, Uzumaki-sama, I didn't mean to. Hey, don't worry about it. I'm glad to meet someone who knows of my family. Hey, if you'd like, maybe sometime you could come over to my house, I'll show you the armory. When I was in Uzu, I sealed away the entire weapons room. All of our swords are with me now. Tenten's eyes grew the size of dinner plates and stars seemed to replace her pupils. Really? That's amazing. Can I, Dad, can I? Tanaka laughed his ass off. Of course. I'm sorry, Naruto. You see, my daughter is a fangirl for weapons, especially the famous ones. Naruto laughed as well. It's alright, it was nice meeting you too. I gotta go to team placement now, but how about I come by this afternoon, Tenten, and I'll you show my collection? Tenten nodded up and down repeatedly. I can't wait. See you then. Naruto left the weapons shop and Flash stepped his way to the academy. He took an empty seat and waited for the placements to begin. Later. Okay, Team 1 will be. Okay, Team 7, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, haha, take that Ino pig. And Naruto Uzumaki. Your Jonin instructor will be Kakashi Hitaki. Naruto waited with the rest of his team in silence. Knowing his Ni-san this was gonna take a while, so he just closed his eyes and meditated. 2 hours later the door slid open. You're late, Kakashi-sensei. Sakura screamed. My first impression of you guys? I hate you. Well, except you, Uto. Meet me on the roof. Naruto stood up and in a burst of blue flames disappeared. He reappeared in front of his Ni-san on the roof. Kakashi continued reading his little orange book, and Naruto pulled out a long, thin pipe filled with tobacco. "Since when do you smoke Oto?" Kakashi asked, looking at Naruto with a raised eyebrow. "Since I found out I was gonna be teamed up with Duckass Labruder and Howler-chan." Naruto deadpanned while lighting his pipe. Kakashi just smiled. A few minutes passed in silence with Kakashi reading his smut, and Naruto blowing smoke rings. Finally Sasuke and Sakura made it to the roof. Kakashi closed his book as the two took their seats next to their teammate. "Okay, let's begin. I want you to introduce yourselves, tell me your likes, dislikes, and dreams for the future." Kakashi-sensei, could you go first to show us how it's done?" Sakura asked. "Sure, my name is Kakashi Hitaki. I like a lot of things. I don't feel like telling you my dislikes and dreams for the future." Never really thought about it. We only learned his name, thought Sasuke and Sakura. "Okay, you Pinky, go." Sakura bristled at the nickname but continued anyway. "My name is Sakura Haruno. I like," looks at Sasuke and giggles, "I hate Pig." "My dream for the future is," looks at Sasuke, giggles and squeals. "Great, a fangirl," thought Kakashi with a sweat drop. "Okay, Whiskers, you're up. My name is Naruto. I like ramen, kenjutsu, fuienjutsu, Kakashi ni, and training. I dislike arrogance, people who judge others, and rapists." Kakashi flinches. "My dream for the future is to become the best Hokage, and protect all of those who are precious to me." Kakashi smiles. "You will, Naruto, I know it." "Okay, Broody, you're up." Sasuke gave him a dirty look. "I have many dislikes, and even fewer likes. I don't have any dreams, but I have an ambition. I will kill a certain man, and then rebuild my clan." "Great, an Avenger and a fangirl." Deadpanned Naruto and Kakashi. "Sasuke's so cool," thought Sakura. "Okay, meet me at the third training ground tomorrow at 5 a.m. "Oh, and don't eat breakfast, you'll just puke it up," Kakashi said with an smile before leaving in a shunshin. "Don't listen to him. If you don't eat breakfast you'll have no energy and you won't perform well," said Naruto to his teammates. "Why would we listen to you, Naruto baka?" screeched Sakura. She was still pissed that Naruto made Sasuke look bad. "Don't if you don't want to, just trying to help." Naruto walked to the edge of the roof and stepped right off. Sakura and Sasuke ran to the edge and looked over. Naruto was falling straight down head first, before his body rose up and he took off flying into the air. "That was so cool." No, it wasn't. Naruto baka isn't nearly as cool as my Sasuke-kun." Meanwhile Sasuke was thinking, "How did you get so much power, Dobi?" Later, Naruto had picked Tenten up as promised, and after Tenten had thoroughly inspected each and every single weapon in Naruto's armory, had challenged the blonde to a kenjutsu spar. The blonde agreed, and now they were facing each other in the center of the sparring ring. Tenten readied her sword, a Chinese jian with a red tassel. "I may not be a master, but I think you will find my kenjutsu to be adequate," Tenten said with a smirk and a challenging look in her eyes. Naruto flashed a grin. "I really hope so, Tenten-san, or else this won't be much fun." Tenten merely chuckled in response. Naruto created a seal-less shadow clone that stood between the two combatants. "Are you two ready?" the clone asked. The two sword-wielding shinobi nodded and the clone nodded back. "Hajime!" The clone dispelled, and Naruto's Masamune was holding back Tenten's Jien in a show of sparks. Naruto forced the girl back and began dodging a flurry of sword swings from the laughing Kunoichi. Naruto just shook his head and sidestepped and twirled behind her. He hit her in the back with the blunt side of his sword. "Patience, Tenten. You must not rush in so hastily." Tenten in reply spun around with her sword in mid-swing. Naruto languidly parried. "You must show more restraint, Tenten." Tenten grew determined and angry. She focused on her sword as it slashed about, only to be blocked and parried by Naruto. Naruto, having had enough of this, went on the offensive. His sword blurred and Tenten struggled to block all of his strikes. Tenten leapt back and with the sword held horizontally, parallel to her head, thrust the sharp blade towards Naruto's chest. Rather than parry or dodge, Naruto jumped straight into the air and landed gracefully on top of her blade. Tenten looked up in shock to see Naruto staring down at her, smiling. His sword Masamune pointed at her throat. "Game over, Tenten." Naruto hopped of the sword, which Tenten let fall to the ground. The girl collapsed onto her knees, panting, trying to regain her breath. I'm a failure. I'm never going to be a true weapons mistress, the girl said with obvious sadness in her voice. Naruto looked down at her and rested his hand upon her shoulder. Of course you will, Tenten. You just need some good training. The girl looked into Naruto's eyes, and then before the boy knew what was happening, she was wrapped around his legs. Please train me, Naruto-sama. Naruto's eyebrows disappeared into his hairline. What? Was his intelligent reply. The girl detached herself from his legs and took a submissive position on the grass, her forehead touching the ground. Please, Naruto-sama, you are a true master. I humbly ask that you take me on as your student in the art of Kenjutsu. Please teach me, Naruto-sama. Naruto looked at the girl for a few moments, thinking hard on the subject. Then he remembered 6 years ago when he asked his ancestors to train him. He knew had they said no, he would never be the warrior he was today. He thought back to the girls at the academy. All but Hinata were pathetic fangirls. Here was a dedicated kunoichi, who if ever in a Kenjutsu fight with a true master would surely die. Not to mention this would help in the future for his dream to be Hokage, and the girl would eventually spread his knowledge to any future students she may have. She could help him spread the teachings and revive the name Uzumaki. Yes, he would teach her. Naruto smiled and answered, how could I say no to such an enthusiastic and dedicated kunoichi? Stand up, Tenten. We will go see the Hokage together. If he and your sensei agree, then I will become your sensei. The girl glomped him, yelling out a string of thanks us. But you must promise that you will work hard and follow all of my teachings. Also, any of my clan's styles and secrets must not be shared with anyone without my permission. Is that clear, Tenten-san? Tenten grew serious and determined. Of course, Naruto-sensei. Naruto beamed. I could get used to this sensei thing. The two set off towards the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage and proclaimed God of Shinobi, was currently growling and staring at his longtime nemesis, paperwork. Why the hell did I take this job again? He asked to no one in particular. The Anbu hidden in the room snickered at the old man's antics. He was give reprieve, however, when there was a knock at his door. Enter, he announced as the doors swung open to reveal Naruto, who strode into the office with Tenten in tow. The Sandaime raised a questioning eyebrow. What can I do for you, Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled at his surrogate grandfather. Hokage-sama, I formally request to train Tenten here in the art of Kenjutsu. The Sandaime looked at him a little surprised. Naruto, that's great, but with your current rank I'm not sure that's allowed. You could become her sensei and teacher in your off time, but you must be at least special jonin to take formal shinobi students. Naruto nodded, but then with a playful smile walked toward the Hokage. He bent down and whispered something into the old man's ear. Suddenly, with agility not commonly seen in a man of his age, the Hokage leapt the desk and grabbed his surrogate grandson by the shoulders. He shook him harshly, making Naruto look like a bobblehead doll. Tell me, damn you, tell me the secret. If that wasn't bad enough, the old man dropped to his knees with hands in a praying pose. Please teach me, Naruto-sama. The Anbu burst out laughing and Naruto popped a vein in his forehead. Get a hold of yourself, Gigi. Naruto yelled. This seemed to do the trick as Hiruzen stood up, dusted of his robes and sat back in his seat. He coughed once before righting himself. Anbu, get me Might Guy. A few minutes after the Anbu left, Guy entered the room. You wanted to see me, Hokage-sama? Guy adopted a questioning look as he saw Tenten and Naruto standing in the room. Guy-san, Naruto here has something he would like to ask you. Guy looked even more curious as he turned to Naruto. Guy-san, I ask your permission to become Tenten-san's Kenjutsu instructor. She is a dedicated kunoichi, as you are aware, and with my extra training in conjunction with yours, I think she will become one of the best. Guy looked upon the two and then started crying big anime tears. He wrapped the two genin in a bone-crushing bear hug. Yosh, this is what youth is all about. How can I say no to my young student wishing to train even harder? Guy let the two free, much to their relief, before continuing. Naruto-kun, you have my permission. I've seen your skills and I know that you will be a great teacher to young Tenten-chan. May your youth burn with the intensity of 1,000 suns. Naruto's sweat dropped. I will, Guy-san. I appreciate your support. Tenten bowed her head to her longtime sensei. Thank you so much, Guy-sensei. I promised to work very hard to accomplish my dream of being Konoha's #1 weapons mistress. Guy and Naruto decided to work out a training schedule after Naruto got his own schedule from Kakashi, assuming Naruto passed the test that would take place tomorrow. Tenten and Naruto both filled out a form that stated that Naruto was her advanced Kenjutsu instructor, which Guy signed as well, being her Jonin sensei. After Guy left and the paperwork was filled out, Hiruzen turned to Naruto, anticipation rolling of in waves. So Naruto, I fulfilled my end of the bargain, so now tell me. What is the secret? He asked, leaning forward on his desk. 2 words: Gigi, shadow clones. The Hokage's eyes widened the size of dinner plates before he opened his desk and pulled out a box and key. He opened the box labeled, "Only open after discovering the secret to beating paperwork." Inside was a piece of paper with a red target with an arrow pointing to it, reading, "Hit head here." In the corner was a chibi Minato doing the victory sign. Upon seeing it, Naruto laughed his ass off along with the Anbu. Hiruzen placed it on his desk and proceeded to bash his head against it. So what was the deal? Tenten asked, confused, as they left the Hokage building. Naruto looked at her and smiled. I made a deal that if he let me take on students whenever I want, I would tell him the secret to finishing his paperwork. Back in the Hokage's office, 3 of Hiruzen's shadow clones were filling out paperwork while the Sandaime himself was sitting back smoking his pipe while reading a particular orange book. "Oh Kagome, you naughty little minx you." He giggled perversely with a blush spread across his face. Naruto was heading toward Training Ground 3. He had woken up early, showered, changed, and ate a healthy breakfast. He had 3 bento boxes sealed in his body and was whistling a happy tune. It was almost 5 in the morning, and when he arrived at the field he found he was the first one there. Field 3 was a lovely place. It was spacious, with plenty of surrounding forest and a wide open field behind it. In the center were 3 training posts, and directly in front of those was the memorial stone dedicated to all of the fallen Konoha shinobi. His parents' names were among the countless thousands carved into the polished slab of granite. Naruto sat behind one of the posts and entered into a state of meditation. Naruto's mindscape. Drip, 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 dank water fell from the pipes that ran along the walls of the sewer that was his mindscape. When he thought about it, it seemed less a sewer and more an old boiler room. He waded through the shin-high waters toward what would inevitably lead to the central chamber. All paths led to this chamber, no matter what turns and hallways you took. Finally, after a few moments, he came to the large gates of the Shiki Fujin seal. He could hear deep guttural growls coming from behind the gate, and could feel the key, killing intent, full of a great malevolence, focused right on him. He showed no hesitation and no fear as got closer and closer to the massive gate. In truth, Naruto had come here often since his time in Uzu. Nearly every day he came in at least once to chat with his tenant. It always ended the same though. The great fox would curse and berate the boy until he gave up. "Hey Kurama," Naruto said as he stared into the black void. He received his reply in the form of the Kyuubi bashing into the cage and trying to reach Naruto with his massive claws. "Rahhhhhhh. Brat, I told you not to call me that. You have not earned the right to use my name. What the hell do you even want, you sniveling little ingrate?" Naruto didn't flinch, or show any sign of weakness or offense. "I'm sorry, Almighty Lord of the Biju," he said with sarcasm dripping off his tongue. "Your name is Kurama, and I'm not going to stroke your already massive ego by addressing you with such titles. If you want, I can go back to calling you Fluffy-chan." "Huh? Would my whittle Fluffy-chans like that?" he said in a baby talk voice with a massive smirk plastered on his face. "When I get out of here, kid, I will floss with your entrails. Why do you insist on bothering me? Your parents already doomed me to this hell. Why do you insist on making it worse with your annoying presence?" Naruto pondered this question for a while. Then with full seriousness he stared into the massive red eyes of the 9-tailed fox. "'Cause I know what it's like to be all alone," Naruto said with no humor or sarcasm in his voice. The fox looked a little surprised but quickly shook it off with a snort. "Look Kurama, I know what it's like to hate. To be angry and want to watch the world burn. But I found family. I found friends and people I care about deeply enough to forget my hatred. The only person you've got for the foreseeable future is me. Like it or not, we're stuck together. I want us to get along. I want us to help each other, and one day I would like us to be friends, comrades even." I am going to find the bastard that is responsible for the night of my birth turning into such a clusterfuck. When I find him I am going to make him pay for all of the suffering he caused, not just to me and my village, but to you when he put you under that genjutsu. My father couldn't defeat him, so chances are I will need your help. I want us to be able to talk and work together. I know that if the two of us teamed up instead of pretending the other doesn't exist, we could accomplish amazing things. Maybe then, if you prove to me that you're not the evil son of a bitch you pretend to be, I will find a way to give you your freedom. The Kyuubi had the decency to look shocked after that little speech. He kept replaying it over and over in his head, while trying to find any ounce of deceit. The problem was he found none. This kid was completely heartfelt and serious. Is he the one father spoke of? Well Kurama, just think on what I said for a while. I will see you tomorrow, goodbye. Kit. The Kyuubi started, but it was too late. Naruto left his mindscape and returned to the physical world. The Kyuubi had some thinking to do. Training ground. Naruto opened his eyes and smiled. Maybe it wouldn't take as long as he once thought to finally reach the prideful Biju. That could wait however, as he sensed right away that Sakura and Sasuke had just entered the training field. He stood up and stretched before waiting for them to approach. They each sat down and Naruto addressed them. Hey guys, so did you eat breakfast? He asked the two. Sasuke didn't even look up, he just pretended not to hear him and Sakura just looked at him like he was an idiot. Naruto baka. Kakashi-sensei told us not to eat breakfast. Naruto rolled his eyes at the loudmouth fangirl. Yes, and I told you that that was not a good idea. Look, food equals energy, energy equals better performance. You can't train on an empty stomach. Kakashi knows this. That's why he doesn't want you to eat. He's setting you up for failure. Do you even know what we're doing here? I do. I also know that my Nissan hasn't ever passed a Genin team before. Sakura and Sasuke both looked at him confused. What do you mean? Was Sakura's intelligent response. Naruto just shook his head. Never mind, Nissan will explain when he gets here. Look, listen to me or don't, it's you two who are going to feel like shit when this goes down. Here, Naruto unsealed two of the bentos filled with breakfast. He handed one to Sakura and one to Sasuke, before walking toward the memorial stone to find his parents' names. Sasuke examined the food before his stomach growled, as did Sakura's. Sakura blushed and Sasuke just shrugged before digging in, followed by Sakura who loved to copy him. About 20 minutes later Naruto walked back into the center of the field. He unsealed Zangetsu and Masamune and summoned 50 clones all armed to the teeth with various weapons. He held Masamune in his standard reverse grip and hefted Zangetsu onto his shoulder. He smiled before in a burst of blue flames his yellow fox mask appeared on his face. Let's rock. His stunned teammates watched with rapt attention for the next few hours as Naruto systematically and without prejudice butchered his clones. He spun about unleashing hell with Zangetsu, before attacking any clones trying to come into his blind spot with Masamune. He performed weaves, rolls, and acrobatics as he dodged and parried all of their feeble attacks. After he cleared through all 50, he summoned 100, then 150, then 250. Right now he had close to 1,000 shadow clones surrounding him on all sides. He stabbed Masamune into the ground and unrolled some of the cloth on Zangetsu's hilt. He wrapped his hand in the excess cloth before spinning the massive crescent blade like a windmill. His teammates watched in awe as he threw the large blade and cut through his clones. He spun and twirled, changing the direction and position of the large cutting windmill. After a while Naruto grew bored, so he threw the large blade into the air. All the attacking clones stopped and watched as Zangetsu soared straight up, only to be dispelled as Naruto Flash stepped between them all, slicing them down with his mighty Masamune. After all the clones were gone, he caught the falling Zangetsu and sealed both swords away in a flash of blue flames. He turned towards the forest and pulled his fox mask to the side of his head. How was that, Nissan? He asked with a smile. Sasuke and Sakura, still flabbergasted by the incredible show of skill, turned their attention to where Naruto was talking and watched as Kakashi stepped out of the forest clapping. Very good, Ototo, I think you set a new record for yourself. He said with an eye smile. A few minutes later, Kakashi stood in front of the three-seated genin. Now for this test you must each get one of these bells from me. But Kakashi-sensei, there are 3 of us and only 2 bells. said Sakura with confusion. Kakashi's eyes smiled. I'm glad you noticed, Sakura. Whoever doesn't get a bell will be sent back to the academy. Sasuke and Sakura grew wide-eyed and started to complain. But Kakashi-sensei, that isn't fair. Kakashi nodded. No, it isn't, but the fact is this is your final test. You are not yet Genin. He was lying a little bit, because regardless of the outcome, Naruto would still be a Genin. He just wouldn't be on a Genin cell with Kakashi as his sensei. Your graduation from the academy was only to show us who has the potential to be a ninja. Out of all who graduated from the academy, only 9 shinobi will be selected. That means you have a 33% chance of passing and becoming a fully fledged shinobi. Quote, now you have 2 hours on the clock over there to get these bells from me. Whoever doesn't get a bell will be tied to a post, while the others eat lunch in front of them. He pointed to the 2 lunchboxes next to the clock near the memorial stone. He didn't hear their stomachs growl, so he raised his eyebrow. Did you 3 eat breakfast? Naruto smiled and his 2 teammates looked at Naruto. Yeah, Naruto brought breakfast for us. He said that you were setting us up for failure by making us hungry and tired. Kakashi stared hard at Naruto, who just scratched the back of his head and giggled. Kakashi just sighed. Well, he was right. Thanks a lot, Naruto. Okay, on the count of 3 you will begin. Oh, and remember, come at me with the intent to kill or you'll never get a bell. Kakashi said with his eye smile. 1, 2, 3. And they were gone. Sasuke was in a tree watching as the Jonin read his smut. Sakura was hiding in a shrub. Naruto was just gone. Suddenly Sakura felt warm metal wrap around her mouth and body and pull her backwards into the forest. She tried to scream and squirm free, but it was of no use. The same thing happened to Sasuke, and they soon found themselves in front of Naruto, who had chains coming out of his back, the same chains that were currently binding the fist of Genin. I know what you're thinking. What the hell is this idiot doing? Well, I'm saving your asses from being sent back to the academy. The 2 tied-up ninja raised their eyebrows. Yes, you see, as ninja we have to learn to look underneath the underneath. We have to learn how to spot deception, and learn how to accurately deceive others. This whole test is a deception. The true goal is to teach us teamwork. Kakashi ni is trying to pit us against each other by saying that whoever doesn't get a bell will be sent to the academy. In truth, even if we get a bell, it doesn't matter if we stab each other in the back in the process. Quote, think about it. Have you ever heard of a 2-cell Genin team? Not, it's 3 Genin and a Jonin sensei. Again the 2 bound ninja widened their eyes. See, you know that I'm right. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to remove my chains, and you are going to be calm. Then the 3 of us as a team are going to come up with a plan to get the bells. Having said that, Naruto lowered the 2 no longer struggling ninja to the ground and withdrew his chakra chains. After some cursing and complaining, Team 7 came up with a plan to get the bells from their porn-reading sensei. Kakashi was walking around the center of the training ground reading his book. In reality, though, he was confused. Their chakra signatures disappeared a moment ago. I wonder what those 3 are planning. Naruto must be behind this. No sooner had he finished his thought when his danger senses went haywire. He rolled to the side and stashed his book. 3 kunai embedded into the ground where he had just been standing. Kunai, really? He looked at Sakura, who had thrown the knives. He regretted turning away from the kunai, however, when his danger senses told him turn back around. Once he did, he was forced to block an axe kick delivered by Sasuke, and duck a roundhouse kick thrown by Naruto. You hanged yourselves into kunai, which Sakura threw, very creative. He said with an eye smile, but then looked shocked as the Naruto in front of him dispelled to reveal Sakura using a henge. He turned back around to block Naruto, engaging him with the cornered fox style. Not to be outdone, Sasuke soon joined Naruto in fighting back Kakashi, who started having a difficult time. He leapt out of the way when Sakura threw some shuriken his way. He rolled to the side and instantly regretted it when he soon felt that there were 10,000 pounds on his back, forcing him to collapse face first into the ground. With great difficulty he picked his head up and saw that he was lying in the center of a complex ceiling array. What the hell? The Naruto that he had been fighting dispelled to reveal it had been a shadow clone, and Naruto walked out of the forest. It's my strongest gravity seal Ni-san. I drew it while you were distracted by my teammates and my clone. Naruto sent a chain out that collected the 2 bells. He threw one to Sakura and the other to Sasuke. The smiling Naruto and Sakura, and the smirking Sasuke then told Kakashi of Naruto explaining the true purpose of the test, then coming up with their plan. Kakashi smiled with obvious pride in his new students. Naruto deactivated the seal and Kakashi dusted himself off. After passing the 3 genin, Kakashi gave them each a list of dates and times to meet for team-building exercises and meetings, and told them he would meet them at the shinobi mission offices in the morning to receive their first D-rank mission. Before leaving them he left them with some final words. While those who break the rules of the ninja world are trash, those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. Hokage office. After leaving the training ground, Naruto went to see his Jiji to ask a favor. He was standing in front of the smiling Hokage, who after using shadow clones to complete his paperwork felt like he was 20 years younger. "So what can I do for you, Naruto-kun?" Hiruzen asked with obvious gratitude to his surrogate grandson. "Well, Jiji, I was wondering if you could give me a permission card to train in the Forest of Death. You see, it's the only training ground I can think of that will give me some privacy to work on some of my larger-scale destructive jutsus. Right now I'm working on something big." Hiruzen thought it over and when he couldn't think of any reason to say no, smiled and stamped a permission card that would allow Naruto unlimited access to the dangerous training zone. He had just handed it to Naruto when suddenly the doors were kicked open and a little boy wearing a skull cap and a really long blue scarf appeared in the office. "Old man, I have come to finally take that hat." The kid stepped forward with a kunai in hand and fell on his face. Naruto just sweat dropped. "What the hell?" Konohamaru stood up and rubbed his head. He looked up at the confused Naruto. "Hey, you tripped me," he yelled while pointing an accusing finger. A tick mark appeared on Naruto's head as he looked back at the boy. "You tripped on your own scarf, brat." Naruto deadpanned. "You call me a brat now, but you wouldn't if you knew the Hokage was my grandfather," said Konohamaru with his arms crossed and his head turned away. He believed Naruto was just like everyone else. No one besides his grandfather and uncle Asuma called him Konohamaru. No, everyone called him honorable grandson. He believed that Naruto would be just like everyone else, but that theory went out the window when Naruto replied, "I don't care if he's your grandmother, you little brat." Hiruzen sighed. "I'm sorry about Konohamaru, Naruto. He got it in his head that if he defeats me he will become the Hokage." Naruto smiled. "Don't worry about it, Jiji. Anyway, thanks for the pass." Naruto left the Hokage's office just as Ebisu was entering to stop Konohamaru from trying to assassinate the Hokage. "Jiji? Who was that guy anyway?" Konohamaru asked his grandfather. Hiruzen chuckled. "That Konohamaru is the Leaf Village's hero. That was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." Konohamaru's eyes grew wide. Hiruzen had spoken many times about Naruto. It was no secret to anyone in the village that Naruto was their Jinchuriku, and just what he had been through and why. It was as commonly known now as his parentage. That was Naruto? Naruto was walking down the street. He was thinking about his life to this point, what he had accomplished and all of the things he had yet to accomplish. He had so much on his plate, it seemed. He had to meet up with Tenten later to discuss her training. He had his own team and training to consider. He had to start using his great-grandfather Rin's sword Kurakara, as he had yet to really cut loose with it. He had to build his own forge, and eventually he wanted to forge his own blade as well. He already had some awesome and legendary swords, but he wanted to create a few of his own. Swords that he could make legendary. He had to meet Ero Sennin later tonight. The old perv wanted to discuss something important with him. He just had so much going on. He had to go to the Forest of Death at some point now that he had permission so he could work on his secret jutsu training. Not to mention trying to rebuild his clan, defeating hatred in the world, and in the Kyuubi. And let's not forget finding that bastard and the orange mask. So much to do, so little time. So lost in his thoughts was he, that at first he didn't notice the tail that had been following him since he left the Hokage's office. Eventually, when he snapped out of his nagging thoughts long enough, he took notice. "You know you're holding that cloth the wrong way?" Naruto said without looking at Konohamaru, who was pretending to be a fence. This went on for a while before finally Konohamaru gave up and demanded that Naruto trained him. "Look, kid, I already have way too much on my plate right now. I'm sorry, but now is not a good time to take on any more students." Konohamaru looked depressed. Naruto was about to move on, but Ebisu the special Jonin showed up. "Honorable grandson, Please come with me right this instant. Only with my special training will you be able to shortcut your way to becoming Hokage. Naruto stopped in his tracks. Ebisu-san, don't lie to the kid. There are no shortcuts to becoming Hokage Konohamaru. You can only achieve your dream, as noble as it is, through hard work and unwavering dedication. Naruto then turned to leave once again. I think I know what my student needs and doesn't need Naruto-san. Naruto didn't break stride. I'm sure you do, he said sarcastically. That explains why instead of training or studying he's trying to assassinate his grandfather. Ebisu grew a tick mark. It's not my fault he won't listen to me. Naruto stopped cold at that. He turned back around and walked right up to the two. How can a student listen to his sensei? If a sensei won't listen to his student? Konohamaru wants to become Hokage. The only problem is he wants it for the wrong reasons. Konohamaru is living in his grandfather's shadow, because people like you look at him and don't see Konohamaru. No, all you see is the grandson of a Hokage. I know what this is like, because even at this moment some people look at me, and they see my father, or worse yet they see the Kyuubi. Konohamaru, I can't become your sensei right now. That, however, does not mean that I can't at some point in the future. But if you would like a little guidance right now, follow me. Konohamaru and Ebisu followed Naruto to an empty training ground. Naruto stopped and looked at the two of them. Konohamaru, being Hokage is not the solution to your problem. Konohamaru looked down at his feet. To be Hokage is my dream. I want to be Hokage because I love and cherish this village. I want to do my best to protect every single person, civilian and ninja that lives in it. To be Hokage means a great deal more than petty recognition. Quote, it means that you must make the hardest decisions. Decisions that will directly affect every soul within Konoha. Sometimes these decisions will even affect the entire shinobi nations. You will be forced to decide punishments, promotions, and most importantly mission assignments. If even one of your ninja is not ready for the task you assign, it can mean death for an entire squad. Quote, you must be able to decide when a ninja is ready for a dangerous mission, and you alone must carry the burden of any and all consequences of their potential failure. Every action you make will have some effect on someone's life, either positively or negatively. You will have to send men and women out to kill. And many times the ninja you send out into the dangerous world we live in will not come home alive. Now, I ask you Konohamaru, can you honestly tell me that today you are ready to become Hokage? Ebisu looked hard at Naruto. He was not angry with him. In truth, he was quite impressed with the young man. He looked hard at him because it was so difficult to comprehend what could make a young man, only a few years older than Konohamaru, so mature. It was like being in the presence of a cage. Konohamaru looked shocked at Naruto. He had never been told the truth of what it meant to be Hokage. He now had a newfound respect for his grandfather. What a burden the man must carry. Naruto ni I am not ready yet to be Hokage. But I will train hard. I will grow strong. And one day, I will become Hokage to protect my village, and carry this great burden. So my friends won't have to. Naruto came forward and put his hand on the boy's head. I know you will, Konohamaru. I have no doubt that you will accomplish your dream. But you're gonna have to beat me to become Hokage, he said with a smile. In reply, Konohamaru smiled as well before pointing at his new big brother. Okay Naruto ni, from now on we're rivals. Naruto laughed heartily. You got a deal, Ototo. After leaving the newly enthused Konohamaru, who left with Ebisu for some real training, Naruto sought out Tenten at her team's training grounds. Naruto-sama. Naruto smiled at the enthusiastic girl. I told you Tenten, you don't need to call me that. It's just Naruto, or if you must, Naruto-sensei. Tenten blushed and giggled. Sorry Naruto-sensei. Naruto waved it off and looked at her two teammates who upon seeing him came over. Yosh, you must be Naruto-kun. Tenten has been talking about you all day. Tenten looked completely embarrassed. Lee, I have not shut up. Ah, so you must be Namikaze-sama, said a Hyuga with long brown hair. Tenten has informed us that you are to be her new Kenjutsu instructor, correct? Naruto nodded. That is correct Hyuga-san. I'm Naruto. The boy whose name turned out to be Neji nodded his head. Come Lee. Let's leave these two to their training. Yosh, it was nice meeting you Naruto-kun. Maybe next time we may spar? Guy-sensei has told us of your rather impressive taijutsu skills. I would like to try my hand at your formidable style. Naruto smiled and nodded. That sounds like a lot of fun, Lee-san. Maybe next time. Lee smiled and nodded before striking the nice guy pose and following after Neji. Sorry about those two, Tenten said in embarrassment. Naruto dismissed it. Don't worry about it, they seem interesting. Maybe I can get to know them at some point. Anyway, I got some free time now if you would like to begin your training? Tenten nodded enthusiastically. That sounds great, Naruto-sensei. Naruto nodded and the two walked into the center of the training field. Okay, Tenten. To begin, I brought a few scrolls. Naruto unsealed 6 Kenjutsu scrolls. In these Kenjutsu scrolls are the basic forms of styles for a variety of different swords. What I want us to do is pick a basic, yet balanced style for you to learn and build on. It's my hope that after you get comfortable with one of these styles, you will be able to easily alter it to fit the different sword types you use. From there I will help you adapt and crossover with other styles. But in the future, I want you to take all of the knowledge I give you, and create your own unique style. Does this sound good? Tenten couldn't be any happier. That sounds great, Naruto-sensei. I can't wait to begin. Naruto smiled at the girl. Okay, let's get started. Naruto spent a good few hours with Tenten picking a Kenjutsu style that fit her current level of fitness. She was lithe and acrobatic, so they decided on a style called Dance of the Water Dragon. It was a style that focused on fluid movements and a mix of aerial flips and spins when the more advanced movements came into play. It was great for wearing down and intimidating enemies. Tenten again chose a Jien for her weapon, and this style would fit great with the durable sword. In the future, with enough training, she could use this style with dual swords if she wanted to. Later, Naruto had just returned home. He walked into his house and was about to go to bed when he noticed Jiraiya sitting on his couch, looking at pictures of his parents. Hey Ero Sennin, I forgot all about meeting you today. What's up? Jiraiya seemed to snap out of his recollections and focused on the boy. Don't worry about it, Naruto. Look, I was wondering if you could do me a favor. Jiraiya spent the next hour telling Naruto about his former teammate Orochimaru. He then told him about the snake student Anko Mitarashi. He delved into the curse seal of heaven, and that's what he had wanted to ask Naruto about. So you see, Naruto, I'm a master of Fuinjutsu, but you are the student of the three who practically invented the art. Not to mention the fact that you have Kushina and Mito's memories, and they were no slouches themselves. I was wondering if you could investigate into the cursed seal for me. Naruto then took a package of notes and pictures of the seal. That explains a lot. I know Anko. She was at my spar with Kakashi Ni. I thought I sensed a dark chakra on her that was not her own. Don't worry about it, Jiraiya, I'll look into it. That bastard Orochimaru may be good, but he isn't an Uzumaki. Jiraiya smiled at his godson, and after some much more pleasant conversation, bid him good night. After Jiraiya was gone, Naruto looked at the pictures of the cursed seal of heaven. Then he looked at the picture of Anko from her genin days. Don't worry, Anko, I'll help you get rid of that seal. That bastard won't have any more hold over you if I can help it. Naruto met his team in the early morning. They went to the mission assignment office and picked up a few D ranks. They spent the entire morning and a few of the afternoon hours weeding gardens, painting fences, walking dogs, and doing people shopping. After they were done, Team 7 agreed to meet up tomorrow to do some more. Naruto went home and spent an hour cleaning his equipment and inspecting the seals that he used daily. His yellow fox mask had a transparency seal inside, so it didn't hinder his seeing ability. His swords Zangetsu and Masamune had unique gravity seals etched into their handles. Because of this, no ordinary shinobi could wield Zangetsu or Masamune. The seals were set to recognize Naruto's chakra, so the swords would weigh 3 tons to anyone else who tried to pick either of the swords off of the ground. Kurakara was a really unique sword, however. The sword could not be released from its scabbard without first channeling blue flames into the blade. Because of this, no one could use this sword without having the blue flame bloodline, which as far as he knew was on Rin and himself have ever had. After inspecting his weapons, Naruto sealed them away and decided it was time to begin 2 of his projects. Naruto sent 30 shadow clones into the village with plenty of Ryo on hand to buy lumber and other building supplies. He would need plenty of stone, wood and mortar to build his forge. Naruto himself locked up his house and set off towards the Forest of Death to work on his jutsu training. Forest of Death. Naruto walked up the Chunins who handled admittance into the dangerous training ground. With a smile and a wave he handed over his pass, and after some surprised looks from the guards, he received his pass back and ventured into the forest. Naruto ran 6 or 7 miles into the forest before coming to a small glade. Any of the larger-than-normal animals he encountered he scared off with a potent blast of ki. Naruto sealed away his cloak and his vest before he set to work. He stood shirtless in the clearing and attempted to clear his mind. Gravity seals. Kai. Resistance seals. Kai. Chakra restriction seals. Kai. The ground he was standing on collapsed into rubble as his blue chakra shrouded his body and rolled off in waves after the sudden release of his built-up chakra. Birds took flight in fear, followed by any would-be predators. Bits of rock and earth floated waist-high off of the ground, and the wind kicked up high in a spinning maelstrom. Naruto took a deep breath and willed his incredible chakra to calm down before forming a Rasengan in his left hand. He slowly started pouring wind chakra into the powerful ball of energy. The Rasengan started to change at first before it destabilized and imploded, sending Naruto into a tree. Ugh, shit, that hurt. Naruto stood up and tried again. But no matter how hard he tried, he always got the same results. He could have spammed shadow clones into the clearing to help, but he felt that would dishonor his father who had tried for years unsuccessfully to add his element to the incomplete jutsu. No, Naruto would do this the hard way. Midway through his failed experiments, Naruto decided to take a break from the Rasengan experiment. He summoned 75 clones and gave each their marching orders. 25 would work on his chakra control, 25 would work on his kenjutsu, and 25 would work on learning his father's taijutsu style, the hummingbird style. He loved his cornered fox style, but he wanted to broaden his abilities. He had come across his father's taijutsu style from his library after he first moved into his house, and after training a little bit in its katas, it seemed to resonate with him. While his clones were busy with their own devices, Naruto decided to try some awareness exercises. He summoned up a small army of shadow clones and gave them orders to throw kunai, shuriken, and to attack him with different weapons and swords. He tied a blindfold around his eyes and with a foxy smile and a "come on" motion, with his hand he breathed out, "Let's dance." His clones smirked back at their insane, blindfolded creator and charged. Meanwhile nearby, Anko Mitarashi was bored. Scratch that, she was super bored. So far today she had broken 3 prisoners into spilling all of their secrets, ate a shitload of dango, pissed off the general civilian population, and to top it off, scared the shit out of 2 Chunin-level shinobi who had made the mistake of trying to come onto her. All in all, it was a good day. But right about now she was bored silly lounging around in her personal playground. Currently she was sitting in a tree chewing on her last dango stick when something strange happened. A twister of bright blue chakra exploded skyward about 2 miles from her location. She whistled to herself at the sight of the raging sapphire hurricane and smiled to herself. Now who the hell could that be? Not many people trained in the forest of death, and even fewer ever ventured as far as she did. There were too many unknown dangers lurking in the dark. Well, there goes my boredom, she thought with a smirk. Naruto. After some time of doing this dangerous form of training, Naruto picked up on the presence of someone hiding in the trees. Naruto dispelled his clones and turned his blindfolded head towards the person's direction. "Can I help you?" he asked. Anko Mitarashi licked her lips and leapt down from her perch. She had been watching the blonde shinobi for the past 45 minutes or so, and she had to admit she was impressed. She rushed to the clearing to investigate, and what did she find? She found Naruto, shirtless and working on his Rasengan. She had sat down in a tree branch to watch him, and she had to admit she liked what she saw. The kid was freakin' ripped. She sat there almost drooling over his 6-pack abs and sinewy arms. She was going to go out and introduce herself when it appeared he was finished with whatever it was he was working on. Then, he summoned his shadow clones and began all sorts of different training. She sat back down when he tied a blindfold around his eyes, and his clones started throwing pointy things at him. This kid has some serious balls, but it looks like I busted. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly and laughed. I'm not all that special, Anko-san. In a dull roar of blue flames, Naruto was redressed in his shinobi attire. Naruto continued to rub the back of head in slight nervousness. So, would you like to spar a little, Anko? Anko smiled, a little disappointment at the return of his clothes, but she wouldn't say that out loud. That sounds fun, Gaki. Later, Naruto and Anko spent a few hours sparring and chasing each other through the forest of death. After they were finished, and both laughing and panting, Naruto asked the beautiful snake Kunoichi if she would like to go and get something to eat. Are you asking me on a date, Foxy-kun? Anko teased with a seductive smirk. Naruto blushed and stammered. No, I was just wondering if you wanted to we could. Anko laughed at the flustered Genin. Sure Gaki, why not? I am kind of hungry. So the two left the forest and headed out to Anko's favorite dango restaurant. The two ordered their food and spent a while eating and laughing and sharing stories. After the light seemed to fade, and nighttime descended onto Konoha, Naruto spoke up. So Anko, I had a lot of fun today. I was wondering if maybe we could do this again sometime. Spar in the forest, and then if you wanted I could treat you to some dango? What do you think? Only if you want to. Naruto said, growing increasingly flustered and embarrassed. What is wrong with me? Of course she must have better things to do than to spend time with some kid. I'd love to Gaki. Anko said with a small smile, snapping Naruto from his self-deprecating thoughts. Really? He asked, surprised. Why not? I had a lot of fun today, and who am I to say no to free dango? She said with a laugh. Why? Am I not good enough for you, Foxy-kun? She teased with a fake hurt look. No, that's not it at all, I was just, good. It's settled then, Anko said with a smile. Kami, he's so easy to embarrass. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this kid. Naruto and Anko soon parted ways and Naruto headed back to his estate. His clones that he had sent to get building supplies for his forge had dispelled hours ago, so he knew tomorrow he had his work cut out for him. He undressed, took a shower, and climbed into bed. He reflected on his day and couldn't help but smile when thinking back to his time spent with Anko. I really like her. I don't know what it is, but when I'm around her things just feel right. Naruto smiled again and soon drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, across town, Anko too was reflecting on her day. That kid certainly is something. What is this feeling I get when he looks at me though? Something in me calms and everything just feels good. 3 months later. 3 months had passed since Naruto started sparring with Anko in the Forest of Death. Every night when Anko wasn't away on a mission, the two would meet up, spar, and chase each other through the dangerous forest. After they were done with their bouts, Naruto would take Anko out to eat either at her favorite dango stand, or sometimes even to Ichiraku's. In those 3 months they grew to be close friends. Naruto would work into the late hours of the night researching the cursed seal, and he had begun to make some serious progress. He didn't think it would take too much longer to find a way to remove it from the beautiful Kunoichi shoulder. In those 3 months Naruto never brought up her past with Orochimaru, nor did he bring up the fact that he had taken over for Jiraiya to find a way to remove the seal. He didn't want to get her hopes up until he was sure he could remove it for her. Subconsciously Naruto was beginning to develop deeper feelings for the snake charmer, and with any luck so was she. In the 3 months that had passed, Naruto had built his forge. The first sword he had created he called Basutasodo, or the Buster Sword as he liked to call it. It was a massive Zambato broadsword, about 6 feet long, about a foot wide with a single-edged blade. The blade was riveted in place to the guard and handle. The handle itself was a deep red with swirl designs. The sword was made of chakra metal, and had the same gravity seals as Zangetsu and Masamune. Naruto however had added new seals along the edge of the blades of both the Buster Sword and Zangetsu. He called them Tenketsu seals. These seals, when chakra was fed to them, would store up chakra. When Naruto swung the sword, while simultaneously forcing extra chakra into the seals, they would activate and release the built-up chakra in a devastating chakra beam. He called the move Getsuga Tensho, and it was an impressive long-range attack. Naruto wasn't the only one however that was improving greatly. Tenten had improved a great deal under Naruto's tutelage, and she was currently wearing resistance seals to build up her strength. She was making great progress, and Naruto knew that in time she would be an excellent swordswoman. He was currently teaching her about weapons forging with her father, and Naruto decided that when she was good enough, he would help her craft her own custom swords to go with her style. Meanwhile, as far as jutsu went, Naruto still had not perfected adding his wind element to his Rasengan, but he felt that could wait for right now. He wasn't giving up, mind you. No, he worked on it whenever he could. He just felt that when he got it, he got it. He wasn't going to stress out or kill himself over it. Currently, Naruto and his teammates were in the mission hall standing before the Hokage. Ah, Team 7, let me see here. Ah yes, for your next D rank, you will clean the kennels at the inns. Naruto stepped forward and cut his grandfather figure and Hokage off. Hokage-sama, I was actually wondering if it may be possible to get a more difficult mission? Naruto asked calmly. Hiruzen seemed to ponder the suggestion. He knew Naruto was strong enough for rank missions and he was not the reason they were still doing D rank. No, he wasn't sure if Naruto's teammates were ready to do anything other than D ranks. Iruka was about to stand up and voice his concerns, but Hiruzen cut him off. Kakashi, do you think your team is ready for that? He asked the cycloptic Jonin. They are indeed ready, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen nodded his head to the great pleasure of the relieved-looking genin. Okay, I have a C-ranked mission available. You must escort a bridge builder to the land of waves, and guard him from thugs while he completes a bridge. Send in Tazuna-san. The door opened and a spectacled drunken old man, with a jug of sake in his grip, walked into the room. He looked at the genin and their sensei. What the hell? I paid for ninja and you give me a couple of kids? Duckass doesn't look like he could tie his own shoelaces without getting depressed. Bubblegum looks like she may faint at the sight of blood. Don't even get me started with blonde. He was interrupted from his observations, however, when he felt a something cold against his neck. He looked to the side to see Naruto holding Masamune against his throat. He looked back at the three genin and sure enough Naruto hadn't moved. W, what the hell? How are you here, W, when you're still? Naruto smiled at the man. You see, drunkard-san, we ninja, no matter how young we may look, can do all sorts of cool things. Like remove your head from your shoulders with a flick of our wrists. Shall I demonstrate? The Naruto who was standing next to his team dispelled in a cloud of smoke, revealing it to be a shadow clone. Ma Naruto, please don't threaten our client, Kakashi said without removing his eyes from his porno book. Naruto just smiled at Kakashi. Sorry, Ni-san. He resealed his sword and was about to walk away. He stopped, however, and grabbed Tazuna's sake jug from the man's hands, and took a huge swig. Naruto, screeched Sakura, you're too young to drink. Naruto just stared at the girl before deadpanning. Old enough to kill, old enough to drink, gamble, and fuck. Sakura and Sasuke blushed and the Hokage and Kakashi just sweat dropped. Okay team. Meet at the gate in an hour, said Kakashi before everyone went on their way.